Selena Soo, welcome to the WorkPlay
Thank you. I'm
podcast.
so excited for our conversation.
I am so excited. This is going to be such a treat. When you came into the WorkPlay method, I was so excited to just get my visual hands all over your brand because you are the some of like one of the top PR marketing experts in this space. And so I think it's so cool how you've gone through this method and what you've created through it. So I can't wait to dive in. Before we go into any of that, let's just go into who you are, what the business that you run is, and how long you've been in
Yeah,
business.
absolutely. So I'm Selena Soo. I am a seven-figure business mentor and publicity strategist, and I love helping entrepreneurs elevate their brand. So I feel like our work is very synergistic because, you can know that you're the best at what you do, but other people need to know that. They need to have other people talking about you. That's why I really believe in the power of publicity and partnerships. But also when they land on your website, their social media, there's like an instant reaction to the copy, the images, all of that. So that's why I was so excited to work with you on upgrading our visual brand identity.
Ooh, I know. I love it. And that's why I'm like, I know that we're gonna get along because we just understand this idea of perception when you're online. Is this something that you kind of learned as you went that this is, a valuable asset for people? Or is this something that you were kind of like, oh no, like you already knew that, perception, publicity is so important?
Yeah, I mean, I really fell in love with the world of publicity because, in my mid 20s, I had my own quarter life crisis. And during that time, I discovered this incredible world of experts and authors. And I would ask my friends, do you know about this person? Because their ideas are changing my life. And so many times people didn't know who I was talking about. And it just reminded me that sometimes people that have the most powerful, life changing message can still be that best kept secret to so many people that don't know that they exist. And so I really wanted to help elevate the brands of people that I felt like everybody needed to know about. For me, I really believe that publicity is one of the fastest ways to get credibility and for people to take your work seriously. So that's kind of why I became so passionate about it. And it's interesting because for me, it's more comfortable for me to shine a light on someone else, to be someone else's like cheerleader and, promoter. But early on in my business, I realized if I wanted to do big things beyond just work with a small handful of people, but really build my brand and be able to work with people in groups and not transform just like, three people's lives, but like hundreds of people's, thousands of people's, maybe even millions of people, that I would need to get visible in a much bigger way. So even though I identify as someone who is introverted, I, did what I help others do. I stepped into the media spotlight, and that really did help establish my brand.
I think that's so interesting how you are introverted, but you are in a line of work that you would think that you would have to be extroverted in.
Mhm.
What, like, tell me about that navigation as you were going into the world of publicity and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
You have to push yourself a little out of that, comfort zone, or can you just do PR and still be completely extroverted? Like,
Yeah. No,
where's
I
the
love this
balance
question. I think what it really comes down to is your vision. Because as entrepreneurs, whether you're introverted or extroverted, there's going to be tons of things that make you feel uncomfortable when you're doing them for the first time, right? When you're doing your first media interview, when you are having your first sales conversation, when you are doing your first outreach to ask someone to be your partner and promote your offerings, like all these things are scary. But the interesting thing is, it's literally the scariest things that are the things that move the needle and take your business to the next level. And so for me, it's always been vision. There were people that I really admired, and I saw them leading groups and having these successful programs and growing their businesses from six to multi six to seven figures. And so I think that it was really me feeling like that was meant for me too. And I had this bigger vision. So I'm willing to experience discomfort and embarrassment and whatever it's going to be, because I know that that's a necessary step to get to where I'm looking to go.
Yeah. And do you think it was hard to break into the media world, or did you have a relatively easy time like building in that industry?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what kind of media outlet someone is pursuing. There are people that come to us and they've never done a podcast interview, and they're like, "I was ready to be interviewed by Brene Brown yesterday." And I mean, I love the excitement, or like if Oprah knew about me, she would be all over me. And totally, that could be completely true. And we don't go from zero to Oprah overnight. There's stages to building our personal brand and really being seen as that go-to expert. But it is important, when people Google you, what's going to come up, right? So the first things that come up when someone Googles you, it's typically going to be your website, your social media profiles, any kind of publicity you've done, and then of course photos as well, right? So these are things that really create someone's initial impression. So publicity is important. And I think that sometimes people think like, well, I'm not going to put myself out there until I'm ready for, the New York Times or Oprah Winfrey. And, like I was saying, I think that we have to, take things one step at a time. You want to start like building that base of publicity where you feel comfortable. So for me, I started writing guest posts and things like that and like sharing my voice through the written format. And then a natural next step was like, okay, now I'm going to have conversations and do podcast interviews. And then like that publicity just kind of got bigger and bigger over time. So I think the most important thing is just to get started and share your message. And, we think about when we're connecting with people about our work, we're talking to like one person at a time. But even being on a small podcast, like even if there's 100 people at a time listening to what you have to say, like that's really significant and that's super leverage. And over time, it can get bigger and bigger. I've been on John Lee Dumas's Entrepreneurs on Fire's podcast like 5 times. And I don't know the latest numbers, but I remember a couple years ago, I asked him, how many downloads and listens do you get per episode? And it was like 137,000, So it is a very powerful, effective way to get in front of a lot of people.
Wow. Like, how amazing that you've been able to build all of this. I want to take a step back and kind of deep dive into your specific business because it's interesting. We talked about this before we started recording how you are a
Yeah.
marketing and PR expert, but I'm interested to know how you kind of think about it in your own business, because sometimes when you're an expert in something, it's then becomes harder to do it for yourself because A, you're too close to it, or B, maybe you don't have enough time. How have you kind of navigated your marketing? What does your marketing strategy look like for your business?
Yeah. So I would say the way that we grew our business really quickly was having influential people endorse us. So yeah, when I got started, I wasn't even really thinking about making money. I didn't even have a business. I was just really drawn to certain people and inspired by them and wanting to help them. And living in New York City, I would, go to events, meet these entrepreneurs I admired. And I guess I had like this go-getter aspect of my personality where I would just start reaching out to the media. I mean, if they said no or didn't respond, no big deal. That's usually what happens, when they're not familiar with you. But I would just reach out and some of them would respond and I would invite them to these little mixers that I was doing. And I would bring together, well-known entrepreneurs I admired with influential people in the media. And people started getting featured in a meaningful way. And so I had all of these people that I used to admire from afar who were endorsing my work, that wanted to give me testimonials, that wanted to refer people to me, that eventually wanted to become my affiliate partners. Right now I'm working on a book, which is all about relationship building. And so that will hopefully be out in a year. But one of the things that I talk about is like one rich relationship is more valuable than 100 casual connections. And I've really found that like when you find someone, I know that, you've experienced this too, Lyric, someone that like really gets your work and like believes in you and wants to shout about you from the rooftops and tell other people, like that one person is way better than like 100 acquaintances that aren't really like connected or don't really, care about your work. And so I guess I was able to create a lot of super fans by leading with generosity and just leading with my excitement around what they were doing and just truly wanting what was best for them. And yeah, then I just had so many endorsements from well-known people, a lot of people wanting to support and promote my offers. And that's how my business got off the ground. I mean, it's interesting because I used to be the person, you know, in bed, you know, on my laptop watching all these videos of these like super famous influential people. And now these were all the people that were like endorsing me and pushing my brand forward. And yeah, I've achieved things in the partnerships area that I think almost no one has like achieved, but it all comes down to relationships and leading with generosity. I think that I understand, of course, like it's important to charge, and obviously we do. We have, you know, we've generated like 13 million in revenue over 10 years. So obviously, we've been like, you know, taking on amazing clients. But I think that when you're getting started out, someone can't really desire what you offer unless they've experienced it, right? So you can be like, I know I'm the best, but they can't desire until they've had different experiences of it. So one of the ways that you can create an experience of your work is whether it's, you know, you're on podcasts and people are consuming that, or they're reading articles, so they're getting a taste of it, or you're churning out, you know, free content and newsletters and things like that, right? So they're getting an experience. But I think the most powerful experience is just being like, hey, like, I want to help you. I would love to make this introduction. I would love to support you. Um, because that's a way to differentiate yourself amongst the thousands of people that are just like putting things out there. So I just started helping people, building relationships, giving them an experience of my work. And then you're kind of like in a league of your own because you have a direct, genuine relationship with someone who really cares about you.
Yeah, and it's so true. And I think that you've just been able to scale something that just seems not able to be scaled, like relationships. It seems like
Mhm.
so, you know, and you've created, it's almost like I'm reading here 400 affiliate
Yeah.
partnerships. That is a huge number in terms of relationships, partnerships. Do you have any kind of system for kind of streamlining this, or is this really a skill set that you're like having to work day in day out with, or is there any
Yeah,
shortcuts?
I mean, I definitely have some thoughts on that. So, one of the things is it's not just about quantity, it's about quality. There's some people who think that they're building relationships by just like leaving little comments on people's social media posts like love it, great. And it's like nice. People always appreciate when you give them some support and all of that. But that's not something that's really going to be remembered. So I think about like how can I do something, you know, I mean, obviously you can't do this with everyone because you're only one person, but gestures that are so breathtakingly generous that someone can't forget about you. And it just puts you in a different category. So, like, as an example, I was a big fan of Pat Flynn and I still am. And I just, you know, how some people they just exude a certain kind of energy, like, and you're just like, I like this person. And so he's someone that just really cares about his community. He's very like family oriented, just like a really good hearted person. And I saw on his newsletter that he was coming to New York City and he said something like, oh, you know, if people want to meet up, maybe I'll organize a little group. And I just reached out to him and I said, like, hey, Pat, you know, I'm Selena. We have, you know, some mutual friends in common. And I saw that you're coming to New York. If you're interested, I'd love to host a dinner party in your honor, and invite some of our mutual friends as well as some other people that you might like to get to know. Let me know your thoughts. And his assistant wrote to me being like, this is amazing, but like, are there like, is this like a paid thing or this? I was like, no, like, I just would like to organize something because it would be great to see Pat and also just bring together people that I think he would really love to connect with. And so, yeah, we had like a really fun dinner party. And then afterwards, he said to me, by the way, I want you on the podcast. And just so you know, that's not why I hosted the dinner party. I wasn't even thinking about that. I wasn't going to pitch him, but it was more like I just felt so excited about him. And I was like, let me just do something cool that really adds a lot of value to him as well. So that's one of the ways that, you know, we started kind of building our relationship. And then even when I've had him speak at my virtual events, like Impacting Millions Live, you know, the way that you introduce a speaker, the way that you hype up the audience, like dropping the links to directly buy their books, make sure to follow them on Instagram and all of that. He was like, oh my gosh, Selena, you have like the best audience. Like they are so engaged and ignited. If you ever need, you know, a speaker again, like count me in. And he's someone that charges a lot for his speaking, but this was something that he did as a gift. And he is like, I'd love to give the gift again. And has just been really kind and generous. But I think it's like just the energy in which you show up, and people can feel your pure intentions. If you're like, wow, I'm like really excited. I just want to support. I want everyone to know about this person. So yeah, I would say like, there's a bunch of people that like, I'm not maintaining a relationship on a weekly or monthly or whatever basis, but there's like a handful of interactions that have really stood out and meant something to them and touched them, that you're just kind of like put in a different category. So that's kind of like one of the tips. And I can share a bit more, but I'm hoping that's like all landing and clicking.
Yes, that's 100% landing. It's so interesting to me because I think with so much of the narratives out there on how to grow your business, for some reason, I just feel like relationships, the PR side, the affiliate side kind of gets somewhat overlooked with like ad campaigns, this, that. And so it's interesting to see how you've built your $13 million business and revenue in like the past 10 years. Like, how you've been able to leverage this thing. Have you been able to leverage anything else, or does anything else help with this type of strategy, or is this like your main
Yeah,
strategy?
this is my main thing, like publicity and
Oh, I love that.
partnerships. I think also the reason why people don't do this is because there's a risk of rejection. And that's what people are really
Mhm.
afraid of. Whereas if you're just kind of emailing endlessly to your list, like you're not getting rejected or posting on social media or running Facebook ads, you're doing all the things, and those can be good things for some people. But I find that publicity and partnerships takes courage, and it also takes really putting yourself in someone else's shoes and thinking about what would it take for it to be a win-win and for them to say yes. So in a way, it does take more advanced skills, because it's like you're directly connecting with people and seeing if they want to join forces with you.
I think that's such a good point, and I've never actually heard it articulated like that, because it's so true. It's like it's so easy to just put up, stay behind your laptop, make a little funnel, and then try and send traffic to it. But it almost seems like you have so much more ease with your marketing because you've done a lot of the heavy lifting throughout your career. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel really blessed. And I think it also comes down to like building your brand, but I would say like a big part of anyone's personal brand is their personal character. And I think the number one thing, that is like the number one value and currency today, people think it's attention, right? Like, got your attention. Okay, that's great. Or maybe people think the number one currency is money, but I really believe that the number one currency is trust. There's nothing that compares to trust. I think if someone can't trust you, then there's not really a genuine relationship. Whereas if there's trust, even when things go wrong, like people, like they know who you are and they know that you're going to come through for them. So I feel really lucky because with affiliate partnerships, this is like the number one thing is trust. I find with affiliate partners, I mean, of course, people, want to be generating revenue from the partnerships. That's just like an obvious thing, but no one's going to partner with someone if they don't feel like they can trust them. And so there's different like types of trust or aspects to trust. There's trust that you deliver high quality work. There's trust that you're going to act in integrity. There's trust that if I hand over my community and I endorse you, that I know that they're going to be taken care of. Right. So when you're doing a partnership, people are basically aligning their personal brand with yours. I mean, they're also trusting that you're going to have your act together and that you can do a good job of marketing and converting people into paying customers. So for me, that's one of the things that's like the most humbling thing, because it's actually really easy for me to get partners. I mean, right now we've restarted our affiliate program and we have 50 partners, and we haven't even like tried to get more partners. We're just reached out to some of our past partners who have really delivered results. But I know if I were to turn it on all the way, it would be kind of insane. But I'm at a place now where like while I had 400 before, I rather have like a smaller number of committed partners. But you can't have partners unless there's trust there. And so it goes beyond just like traditional branding. I mean, of course, like everything we're talking about, publicity and visuals, like that's so important. But trust is about like how you show up and how you follow through day in and day out.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I do think people underestimate how much like a connection, like that one-on-one connection and what you do after that connection really plays a part in what you're wanting from the other person. I want to kind of switch gears into your visual strategy. So you have a killer marketing, killer PR strategy, killer partnership strategy. How have you been using your WorkPlay quarterly content to help facilitate some of these strategies that you're talking about? And if there are some ways to get very granular, I think that would be helpful because your strategy is so clear. So I think it might be helpful for WorkPlay members to kind of understand where they can use these visuals and where you've used them
Yeah.
in these very unique
Yeah, no, it's such a
strategies.
fun question. So, just to give people some backstory. So, at this point, I've had my business for now almost 12 years, and I started my business in New York City, and I loved it there. I thought that New York was a place that I would, always live in, the place where I would die. I was just like obsessed. But over time, the hustle, go, go, go mentality just kind of wore down on me, and I was really craving something different. And I discovered Puerto Rico and was really drawn to the slower pace of life, the tropical island vibes. And when I first learned about Puerto Rico, I had people around me in my life that weren't supportive and, really said like, well, it's island time. I don't know if that's a great place to grow your business. Some people would even compare it to a third world country, and the electricity there goes out all the time. And I got kind of scared because I ran an online business, but as I really dug in further and talked to more people, I was like, you know what, I want to do it. And I mean, my internet would go out sometimes in New York City. So, and it hasn't really been a big issue here. And so I kind of made the leap from New York to Puerto Rico and started building my dream life there in Puerto Rico. And in Puerto Rico, my life became more colorful. I mean, it just is more colorful with like the beautiful ocean and the palm trees everywhere, the rainforest, the beach. And I started, and it's hot there. So you wear kind of more like fun clothes. You're not wearing like long sleeve things and boots. And I remember, so interesting, this like well-known entrepreneur who's like a friend of mine. And he reached out to me and he was trying to be helpful. And the thing is, I don't really mind. I wasn't offended, but some of my friends were offended. But he was saying that, with the way that I was dressing, that, people might not take me seriously. And I didn't think I was wearing anything. I mean, I was wearing like white shorts and like heels and then like I don't know, cute like camisole or whatever. But I was like more stylish. I feel like when I was in New York, I was just like so serious and like all about work. And when I moved to Puerto Rico, I was like, okay, I also want to be living my best life right now. I want to be my most joyful. I want to step into my best self in all the different ways and take care of my appearance more and just like feel amazing in my body. And yeah, I think that he kind of missed the old like serious New York, like less dynamic Selena. And it was fine that
Yeah.
he said that, but I remember like thinking like the clothes that he was saying I was wearing, I was like, those are actually the clothes I wear in real life. You know what I mean? And so I think that it's interesting, like Marie Kondo, when she like advises people, like, do you keep a piece of clothing? She says, does it spark joy? And so when I think about photography and visuals, I'm always thinking about, does this spark joy? And so with the clothes I wear, these are the clothes that make me feel like the most alive and inspired. The destinations where we've taken photos in, like we went to this really cool like tea shop in Miami. And I just think like doing high tea is like the most fun thing. And, being on beautiful rooftops and just being surrounded by like so much beauty and in the most stunning jaw-dropping hotels. Like that's kind of where I like to do my photo shoots because that's where I like to spend time and that's what really lights me up. But I do remember there was a time when I was in Greece and I did a photo shoot there. I was wearing like this red dress. They call it like a fly dress where it's like got a really long train and the wind will like blow it and it looks like you're kind of like flying. And I use that for my Impacting Millions campaign. And Impacting Millions, we stopped the year-long program, but when we were doing it, it was like a 7-figure launch for 5 consecutive years. And people would like, when I would meet people for the first time, they would mention the photography right away. Oh my gosh, you're Selena Soo. And holy cow, I'm like obsessed with that red dress. Like it was just something that was iconic and they didn't really forget about it. And so, I mean, part of the reason why I wanted to work with WorkPlay branding is because some of my friends were working with you and some of their images were just like iconic. Like it was next level. And stop the scroll, like, let me take this in. Like, I'm feeling an emotion. I'm feeling like transformed, like looking at the image. And I really do think that when we are the purest expression of ourselves and are most alive and where we're going for our dreams and all these things, like we inspire other people to do the same. For me, when my friend John Lee Dumas moved to Puerto Rico and decided to, live his dream life there, that inspired me to move to Puerto Rico. I met my best friend there, created my dream business. And I think that the photos that we create, pictures is 1,000 words, but it really communicates so much. It communicates a feeling. And ultimately, like when people make decisions, like buying decisions, they're driven by emotion and they're driven by feeling. And I think words can be powerful. Absolutely. They're essential. But I think when you can combine words with an image, it can take things to a whole nother level. And so when I'm creating my images, I create images that I feel like, I don't know if I guess they're aspirational for sure, but they're images where I really feel inspired and they feel elevated because that's what I'm looking to do for people. I'm looking to push them to a new level that they haven't gone to before. And that's why I have images that convey that. And sometimes people will be like, oh, your brand is so glamorous or whatever. And I don't need everyone to like my brand. I'm not trying to be the girl next door because I'm not the girl next door. I was remember talking to one of my team members, Sharon, and she's like, oh, should we do a group picture with us wearing jeans? And I'm like, I don't even like, oh, I mean, I think I have a pair of jeans somewhere, but I haven't worn jeans in like 5 years. Like I don't wear jeans, or should we do something more casual? I'm like, I don't really have anything more casual. I mean, I guess my workout clothes, but this is how I live my life. And so I want the brand to be an accurate reflection of who I am. I'm not saying everyone needs to be like me, but I think that it's important to be authentic and not just try to blend in with the crowd, unless that is authentic to you. But I just have like my own distinctive brand.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting how you can really craft the narrative around yourself using the visual. Because, like you said, a photo's worth 1,000
Yeah.
words, and it's so true that it can evoke an emotion that can then evoke a perception about you. And if you have your hands in it and you have your a strategy around it, it can be really powerful for you. I love what you've said about the colors because I have also heard from multiple people about you that, like, yes, they know exactly how to describe your brand. And it always comes back to like these bold
Yes.
colors. And there's just like no way that, like, and elevated, but
Hmm.
bold. And when you post something, it's like, oh yeah, that's Selena's photo. You know what I mean? So it's recognizable, and I think
Yes.
that's really important. Probably, especially in your industry where it's like there's so much going on, there's so much relationship building between other people as well. It's like, how can you be memorable in your visuals? So I love that. You have been to different places. So you were in Puerto Rico, you were in Miami. What's coming up next? Because you have two more shoots in your WorkPlay
Yes.
content here. Tell us like what you have envisioning and what you're looking
Oh
forward
my
to.
gosh, this is so fun. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I don't have like definitive travel plans yet. But I spent so many years in New York City. I lived there for 18 years. So that's definitely a possible location for a future shoot. Or maybe Los Angeles. There's some really beautiful locations there. And I was even thinking maybe Vegas because Vegas is super fun. So those are like my top three. We'll see where it ends up being. But yeah, I do like to change things up. I think that if you're only, you don't want to just keep on taking photos that look identical every time, but just like a slightly different outfit or like a different shade. And so, yeah, I feel like we did such a good job. We've taken so many amazing photos in Puerto Rico that I'm like, yeah, what's the next city going to be? And what's really cool about working with your company is that you have photographers all over. And so, no matter what city you go to, you can have, one of your photographers fly in, or maybe you have a photographer that's already local there. And I will say, for any entrepreneur, we know that whenever we hire someone brand new, there's always like a little bit of a risk. Will they show up with professionalism? Will they understand my brand and this and that? And what I love about WorkPlay is even if you work with a different photographer, like everyone has been trained in the same way. They really understand the power of personal branding. They understand the kind of shots that you need for your newsletter, for Instagram. They can really advise you on poses. And so you just have like that consistent high level support no matter where you are versus like starting from scratch every time and trying to figure out, okay, who do I hire in this city and how do I onboard them and how do I kind of get them up to date with like my vision and what I'm looking to accomplish.
I think that's such a good point. And it's something that I feel like we don't talk about
Yeah.
enough, that you get to literally have so many content creators on your team, but backing your brand so that
Yes.
when you go to LA, you can work with Jordan in LA. If you go to Chicago, you can work with Becca. And it's like you can have this like whirlwind thing. And I think that you then get to be more creative. You then get to pick cities that, would complement your bold colors. You get to pick cities that, maybe your friends that you're collaborating with might be in, that you can bring them into the shoot. There's so many different ways that you can strategize that. I'm interested to know, because you've done 2 WorkPlay shoots, getting more tangible with people who might just be getting into their first one, what is some advice that you would give some WorkPlay members for prepping for a shoot like this?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that just blew me away is how generous you are. And it's just part of like your business model where you're like, you understand that as entrepreneurs, like we need so much visual content. Like we need a lot of looks. Like we can't just do a photo shoot and have 2 looks. Like how long is that going to last us on Instagram? And so, I love that there's a good amount of time to take all the photos that you need, that you're cool with us wanting to change outfits often, bring in team members or clients, because that adds another dimension to the photo shoots. So that's been really great. And I will answer your question, but one thing it's just like kind of coming to mind as we're talking is like, I think a lot of us would just expect that professionalism is like mandatory, that every photographer is going to show up with professionalism and kindness and respect. But that hasn't always been my experience. And not to get into the nitty gritty of some of the like semi traumatic experiences I've had, but I have had photographers, for example, they'll take pictures of me and then I'll be like, oh, can I get a sense? Can I take a look? And they won't want to show it to me. They'll only want to show me at the very end after all the photos have been done. But sometimes like maybe you're posing in a certain way or you're using this accessory or whatever it is, it actually doesn't look good. And I love that as you were taking photos, you were like, hey, do you want to take a look and kind of see how it's going? I could be like, oh yes, I love it. Let's do more of that. Or, oh, I don't like how I was leaning back there. Okay, I want to try something different. So it's very like collaborative. I've literally had photographers like get mad at me for like wanting to like see things and break things down. I've had photographers that have quoted a certain price and then they come back later and they change the price and it's like double what I was expecting. And then now my photos are held hostage. I've had situations where photographers were frustrated at me because they didn't feel like I was posing that well or my energy was off. I mean, now I have like a lot more experience with photo shoots, so it's easy for me to kind of strike a pose. But for most of us, like it's not natural to understand how to pose in photos unless we have like a dance background, which is basically posing in motion. I remember there's this photographer that she would say to me, like, can you just fix your face? And like, I didn't know what that meant. Like, I don't know how to fix my face.
Oh my
It's like so
God.
mean. I mean, it was like semi abusive. And it's like, you seem really stressed out. Like, what kind of music should I put on for you? Do you need a drink? Like, it's just like weird. Like, no, like, and I said to her, like, should we just stop the shoot? Cause I feel like I'm doing a really bad job. I feel like, that you're really disappointed in me. And I'm like thinking, like, why am I even having this conversation? Like, I'm the freaking client here. But yeah, I mean, I could go on and on with like the lack of professionalism that I have experienced. And I mean, in every industry, there's a lack of professionalism. I do think that sometimes in the creative industry, people can be really good about their creative art and like in their own world, but maybe not as good as like communication with clients or following through or delivering things on time or certain things. But what I love about WorkPlay is you guys are like the ultimate professionals while being highly creative. I just would tell people that it's not a given that you're going to find both of those together. So it's really good to like work with a photographer that someone has referred to you, or someone that, like with WorkPlay, you guys have, an impeccable reputation and you work so hard on like streamlining things. So yeah, I just had to share that before we talk about how to prep for a photo shoot. Cause I was like, I think it's important that people know
It's
this.
so true. No, I think it's really true. And I'm really glad that you brought
Yeah.
that up because that's something that we saw a gap in the
Mhm.
market for. And that's something that we train meticulously
Mhm.
on because it's so important to us that all of our certified content creators in the workplay method are understanding that piece of it. And so you're getting a team that yes is cohesive. We're all one big team. I think sometimes people think that we're like outsourcing photographers and like they're just coming to you. We're actually all one big team that are we talk to each other on a monthly basis, weekly
Yeah.
basis, and we talk about like your brands that we're about to go and shoot. And so it's everyone's on the same page. You like even like our content creator in LA probably knows about your brand because we've been spreading it across our back end of like,
Mm.
look at this. So like we're so excited about what we're creating as a team that when you go and shoot in LA with Jordan, she's already going to be really excited about your brand because she's already seen it grow within the
Wow.
company. So that's like something that we really love. And just as a photographer, they love being in our company for that reason as well, because there is a mini community on the back end that I feel like no one sees.
Yeah. Okay, in terms of like some tips to prepare for a photo shoot. So, one of the things I think is really important is to know what colors look really good on you and also what types of clothes look really good on you. So, I did this thing online. I forget the name of the company, but there's a lot of them where you can send in a photo of you without makeup and answer some questions, and they can basically give you your colors. And so I have discovered that like I look really good in like what I call like fire colors, like red, orange, yellow, like hot pink. These are colors that like I come alive. Like one of my favorite colors, and I have this right here, is like my, lavender, right? But it doesn't look so good on me. So I can have like lavender in my environment when I'm doing like a photo shoot. I love wearing colors that really pop. So knowing your colors, like having the right clothes. And then I would say like the locations are really important. And so picking the locations in advance and then also thinking about, what outfits of yours are going to match those locations. I've also had experiences in photo shoots where like the locations were really far like spread out. So it would take like 30 minutes to transition to a new location and then to change into outfits again another 10 minutes. And so that killed a lot of time. So my favorite is when, you can't do this all the time, but if there is a location, like when I did photos with you, one of the locations was like the resident lounge in the luxury building that you live in. I could just go to the bathroom there and change and come out. And then, we just got like so much content done. Sometimes when you're doing things like, let's say on the street and there's a lot of people walking in the background, you have to wait for them to clear. Like just understand that like it's totally fine and great to capture those kind of photos, just knowing that those photos are going to take longer to get.
Yes, 100%. And I think going into it, that knowing that is also important because sometimes people are like, have these huge visions for like, I'm going to get like 30 outfits and we're not going to limit your outfit changes, but How long is that going to
Mm,
take? Where are we spending time? Like these are all things that we also help you think about, and we want you to think about because you want to kind of manage your expectations of that day as well. I ask this question to every single person coming on this podcast. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this. But why do you think it's worth it to do it 4 times a year rather than maybe just finding a photographer doing it once a year, like the traditional way of doing things?
yeah, I mean, I think that once a year is not enough. Um,
Mm.
I think like nowadays also social media is becoming really important. And I used to like not like I was barely on social media, but I kind of feel like for most people it's important to show up and be seen. Right? Social media is free. That's where people hang out. And when you post new images, like right, like fresh images, it's going to get people to stop and think about you, see what you're up to. And so just doing one photo shoot, like even if you do like 6 outfit changes, like 6 different looks is like not enough for 365 days worth of content. And I think that also over time, as you're running your business, like you get inspired, you're launching new programs, there's new messages and ideas that you're looking to get across. So I think that anyone that has like a strong brand absolutely needs to be doing multiple photo shoots a year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think about that too, and because I'm
Yeah.
in this world a day in, day out. So for us, like WorkPlay Branding does like way more than 4 a year, but I couldn't. We have the luxury of
Yeah.
doing that, but couldn't even imagine only like working with one set of images. It just like A, it gets a little stale, and then B, it's like, well, it doesn't, what's the difference between this project that you're launching over here versus this if you're using the same visual? It just something about that just doesn't really sit right with me. I am so happy that you came on this podcast. This was the best conversation ever. Thank you so much for your time. Where can everyone find you, connect with you, and see all of the content that you've created inside of the method?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 2 places where people can go. One is to follow me on Instagram. So it's Selena, SELENA underscore Soo, SOO. I post a lot of my photos there. And yeah, they're so fun. Even like I go back to my Instagram feed just to look at like my great photos because that's where they are. That's where we house them. And then also for people that are interested in publicity, I actually have my a publicity calendar right here. So it is over 40 pages worth of story ideas, special dates, and hooks to get into the media for every single month of the year. People always tell me that I should like sell this, but we give it 100% free. So they can go ahead and get that at impactingmillions.com/calendar, impactingmillions.com/calendar, if they want to check out the publicity calendar and stay connected.
I'm gonna check out that calendar. I'm in your whole
Yeah.
PR offering, and I kind of want that calendar now too, as well as everything that you've already given. So I can't stress that enough. Like you are such a leader in what you do. WorkPlay Branding has invested in your company
The
in like
publicity
doing your
work. Yeah.
program. Yeah, the publicity work. I mean, you're just on fire. So definitely, if you are a WorkPlay member, go check out Selena because she's really using this process in such a killer way.